You are a leader, you are a leader. Rising right up the way, you're a leader. Lessons will teach you just how to reach your endless ambitions. Oh yeah, look at yourself in the mirror. Turn that frown upside down. Show up what you're working with. You can't depend on someone else to see your future. That part is up to you. Be a leader. You are a leader. You are a leader. Rising right up the rank. You're a leader. Lessons will teach you to be.
Steve snapping his fingers?
Oh, yeah. Success is right at your door now. You are the.
Hey everybody, welcome to our first installment of Amac's Legends and Leapers program, our very first installment for 2022. We're glad that you had joined us today, and we're very excited for today's program to speak with one of Amac's long-standing corporate partners and one of our dynamic emerging leaders. You know, one of Amac's goals is to help aviation professionals grow in every phase of their careers. From an internship to the C-suite. Inspirational conversations like today's program acknowledge the past created by our legends and promote the next generation of diverse aviation leaders. AMAC is about connecting emerging leaders with seasoned professionals with the goal to propel our members to the next level. We are also accomplishing our goals and accomplishing this through our AMAC Builds program, which provides internship, mentorship, and fellowship opportunities for aviation professionals at all levels. For more information, please contact us at amacbuilds@amac-org.com. We are currently accepting internship applications through January 31st and fellowship program applications through February 1st. Also, if you are not an AMAC member, we invite you to join today on our website at www.amac-org.com. As a reminder, please use the chat feature to submit any questions that you may have for the panelists, and we'll go over the questions during our audience Q&A at the end of the program. At this time, I would like to turn the program over to our moderators for today, AMAC Board Chair, Mr. Ricky Smith, and AMAC Southeast Regional Director, Mori Russell.
Thank you very much, Anthony. I hope you all enjoyed the theme music. A lot of thought went into that, and I'll just to remove any rumors out there, that is not Lauren. She is not singing the song. I know she thinks she does everything for the show, but that is not her voice in the song. It's actually Mori Russell, and we thank her for her amazing vocal skills. So anyway, welcome to Legends and Leapers. This is the first for the year 2022. We're happy to get back in the saddle and have this discussion that so many of you look forward to, and we enjoy co-hosting. You know, this is one of those events that kind of gave birth during the pandemic, and it came out of a need to ensure that we were remaining connected with each other, and that despite the fact that many of us were captured in our homes and communicating with people remotely and virtually, we still wanted to have an enlightening and engaging series of discussions. And so Legends and Leapers allows us to bring someone who has enormous experience in the industry, that has been impactful in the industry, that many people look up to in the industry, and we call that person a legend. And we couple that person with someone who is relatively lesser experienced, but also has demonstrated emerging leadership qualities, and in his or her own right is making a mark on the industry. And so this time we have that in the way of Steve Johnson and Shawnta Young. And so before I go any further, I will turn it over to my amazing co-host and good friend, Mori Russell.
Thank you so much, Ricky. And thank you to Shawnta and Steve for joining us today. So I'm going to give you all just a little background on our legend and our leaper. Starting off with our leaper today, Ms. Shawnta Young. Luckily, I have the pleasure of working very closely with Shawnta in the Emerging Leaders Committee. So a little bit about Shawnta. She works as the operation manager at Midway Partnership, which is a joint venture that includes some of the most respected names in aerospace business. Even though you can look and see Shawnta is a young professional, she has 15-year background in the operations department. Shawnta, prior to joining Midway, worked as a general manager for a number of large-scale stores. And, you know, I think like a lot of us, we have plans for our life and they change. So, you know, when Shawnta really first got started, she initially planned to pursue a career as a journalist, and then soon realized that she had a natural aptitude for working in retail customer service. Shawnta has a Bachelor of Administration and a Bachelor of Science Business Management. And with this and just who Shawnta is, she has been allowed to really pursue her dream of working for a Fortune 500 business and becoming one of the youngest assistant managers. So Shawnta, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so moving on to our legend, who is definitely a legend, Mr. Steve Johnson. Steve Johnson is the CEO and president of HMSHost. For you all who are living under a rock, HMSHost is a global restaurateur and a world leader in delivering innovative dining solutions in travel venues. So HMSHost is in over 120 different airports. The company's annual sales is more than 3.5 billion, not million, but billion, and employs approximately 41,000 associates worldwide. So Mr. Steve is a super busy guy and has a lot on his hands. So he joined HMS in 2000 and has played a critical role in the growth and development of the core of the business. He has served the role of Executive Vice President of Business Development, where he oversaw business development, design and construction, and restaurant development teams. There's a lot more to tell you about Steve Johnson, but prior to joining HMSHost, he served as the director of Westfield Concessions Management Incorporation, really helping them to create a strategy for their airport entry. Steve has been named as one of the Women's Food Service Forum industry titans for his forward-thinking leadership and commitment to prioritizing women advancement, not just in HMSHost, but in the aviation industry as a whole. Lastly, Steve serves on the board of the National Restaurant Association and HMSHost Foundation. Outside of running this billion-dollar company and doing his work in the community, just like most of us, he loves spending time with his family. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. And we are excited to have both of you all. And let's get into this conversation.
Well, thank you, Mori, for that. And again, thank you, Shawnta and Steve, for joining us. I'm sure the audience will appreciate all that you have to say. So why don't I kick this off with a question? And I just want to remind the audience that the panelists do not know the questions that we're going to ask. As a matter of fact, sometimes the questions evolve based on our discussion. I reminded Steve and Shawnta right before we went live that 10, 15 minutes going into this discussion, I still didn't know what questions I was going to ask. And so I do have questions now, and I will start with the first one. And so both of you, I would like to have both of you answer this question. So this pandemic back in 2020, when it first kind of hit us back in March and April, has been topsy-turvy since then. There have been occasions where it was devastating, and then we thought we saw some light at the end of the tunnel, just to see that tunnel, that light was another train approaching. And we've gone through that cycle maybe a couple to 3 times now. We now find ourselves seeing light at the end of the tunnel with this Omicron variant. And there's some optimism, but for others, there may not be as much optimism. And so what I want to know from you all, just kind of taking this whole series of, pandemic cycles in mind, are you feeling optimism that we're on our way out of this pandemic, or are you feeling more pessimism? And if you do, why? Either way.
Shawnta, do you want to go first, or do you want me to take that?
You can go ahead and start as a legend, and then I'll piggyback off of you.
Well, first, Ricky, thank you for having me as part of this. It's Amac is such an important part of really what we do in this industry. Having been in it since the mid '90s and seen how Amac has grown and how it's become really the leading voice for the minority businesses in the industry, it's gratifying to see. I got to work a little bit with Clark Shark back in the day, and Leon Watkins and Bill Jennings, and got to know Herman Russell a little bit even. These people had a vision, and I think that they'd be really proud today of where it is. So congratulations on all of that. I think the pandemic is, when we look forward, I would say I'm very hopeful. I know how dark it's been from where we've come, but I also have a great belief in the human spirit and really what people like to do. They love to explore. As a species, we love to go to different places, and we do that through travel. It opens up our world. It opens up our mind. I remember taking my daughters for the first time overseas, and for them to realize that the world is not U.S. centric, that there's a different viewpoint out there, and it changed them. And I think that travel does that to all of us. So the reason I'm optimistic is I don't think you're going to keep us down. I think that certainly we're going to have variants, and things are going to make this harder. But if you look at where we are today, with the fact that business travel is not even close to being back, international travel is almost non-existent, and yet we are still doing the numbers we're doing. Outside of recently, the Omicron is going to depress us, I think, for a bit. But I look towards spring break. I look towards the summer, and people are going to be back out there. I just don't, even in the worst of it, last January, February, as we started to come out, the numbers were okay. They're not where they were. I mean, I don't think we'll be back to where we were till a couple more years. But with partnerships that we have with our airports, when they step forward and say, MAG has not become an important thing anymore, we can survive. Concessionaires can survive. We can make this work if the MAGs aren't put back in the business. If the MAGs are put back in the business, we have a whole different animal out there. But if they aren't, we have a long way to go. But I have great optimism of where we're headed.
All right.
I'll just go ahead and piggyback. First, thank you, Ricky and Mori. This is a great opportunity. I appreciate even the invite. I don't know if I'm going to ever get a chance to say that again, so thank you. But I am definitely optimistic. I've only been in the aviation industry for about 3 years. And in those 3 years, I mean, I've definitely seen my fair gain of things, one being the pandemic. I think I am optimistic only because of the fact that one, great partnership, right, as Steve alluded to. I work with some of the prestigious names in aerospace, SSP and Hudson, who are the experts in their field, and they're able to kind of feel through things and make things happen. So I'm actually very fortunate to be a part of that kind of team. But in that optimism, they're able to get creative in their space as well, right? They're able to fast track some new technologies. They're able to think differently. Like Steve said, the business travel isn't there. However, that single passenger maybe, that family passenger maybe, it's just changing the way we view now our business. I think the pandemic allowed people to kind of say, you know what, you only live once. It's time to travel. It's time to make those arrangements, figure out how we're going to get out there. So I do see, the light at the end of the tunnel, or the glass half full. as far as the aviation game goes. So I look forward to what it will bring us, because we're definitely changing the way we do things today.
So building on the optimism, which I share and I hope others share, but the optimism that I'm hearing from both of you, project yourself 5 years down the road, and we're looking back on this pandemic, and someone asked you the question, how did it change you? What is going to be your response?
I'll start first, Steve. I'll let you go last. But as far as me goes, right, and boots on the ground, it's allowed me to have a better relationship with my partners and actually our DBEs as business partners. It's allowed us to think outside of the box as well. Like, there is kind of no wrong answer at this point because we've never been hit with this hurdle. We're all coming together as a collective group to kind of brainstorm, to collaborate, and to come as a unit, where we probably didn't have the opportunity, prior years. 5 years from now, we're forced to be reckoned with. I do believe that this is that stepping stone to kind of hinder us, to raise us up.
So I'm going to push back a little bit, Shawnta. So 5 years from now, how will it have changed you?
Changed me personally?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, one, I've never had to stay at home in any of my jobs. So when staying back, home, I'm able to now look at things differently and under a different scope, I guess. In as far as detail, I'm able to get in there. Me personally, I've never been a attention to detail type of person, but now I'm becoming very meticulous even to how my fonts look. I think it's even in my day-to-day, it's changing the way I partner with my business partners. I feel more confident now coming to them as a business partner than I would have, in prior. I think just pushing back on you a little bit, I'm glad that it happened. And I know it's terrible to say that, but I'm actually glad that I'm able to take a chance to step back and kind of do some own self-reflection to help myself grow. As you can see, I'm definitely a leaper. And I couldn't be able to do that, I think, if I didn't have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
I'll piggyback on some of that a little bit. Having gone through 9/11, through the financial collapse of 08 and 09, I think that each time I changed a little bit. It showed the vulnerability of our business. This truly showed the vulnerability of our business. When you drop to 97% of prior year sales, you can't help be changed with how you view both the business and how you view your place in it. I think that it taught me for sure, as a leader of a company, you tend to live in the future more than the present. You tend to look at 12 months, 2 years, 5 years away. And this taught me to stop. I had to stop that. It became really about what's happening today and how do you survive tomorrow. Those were the two things that changed from a leadership standpoint. How it changed me personally, I think it made me more in tune to the people around me, and more had created probably more empathy towards what was happening with our people. And I think that, not that this is a people business, but it truly brought home to me how important that part of it was. I've always said this is a strange industry. If you're out on the street, you have either a brand or you have real estate that has value. In the concession industry, we don't have anything except our good name and our will to do something really good, because we can't leverage our restaurants because they sit inside airports. So you don't actually own the building. In many cases, you don't own the brand because we're operating other people's brands. So it truly has always been a people business, but it brought it back to me that's what it is. It's our ability to connect with our landlords, our brands, our ACDB partners, to create an ecosystem of greatness. And that's not just true of HMSHost, it's really true of all of the industry out there today. So I think more than anything else, it brought me back to focusing on the people again.
Yeah, I love that. I love that response because I do think when the pandemic hit, we were all focused on, okay, when is this going to be over? And how's it going to look from here? But all in that really took us to being in the moment, you know? So I really, really appreciate that. I'm going to switch the subject from the pandemic to, I kind of want to ask a question in relation to AMAC, starting with you, Steve. I think as most people know, we have this ACDBE program in place really to encourage minority and female participation in our industry. Can you speak some to the importance of this program and minority inclusion at HMSHost?
Sure. I think when you think about airports, airports are really a window into a city or a community. And, I think that if it probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years back, when the changeover started to happen between, when airports were all looking the same and now they started to look a little more local. One of the pieces of that is making sure that the local businesses were included. And that's through AMAC, that's through the ACDB program, minorities, women-owned businesses, getting them in and creating the opportunity. HMSHost, I think we have, Ron Gomes is probably on this call, but he'll tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I think we have in the neighborhood of 120 different ACDB partners. 400 million in sales or something that we do in ACDBE. It might be more than that. But it shows, I think, at least from our viewpoint, it is the key, it is the connection between a company like us and the cities themselves. That glue is our ACDB partners and the brands that exist within that city. Yes, we can bring the national brands, but in reality, when you walk into an airport, you want to feel like you're in that city, right? So if I'm flying through BWI, I want to be able to taste the food from Baltimore. I can get the national brands, and they should be there, but there's a real place to make sure that we have the right ACDB partners who are local partners and the right brands in place. So like I said, I was taught by Clark Sharp, right? So one of the founders of this, and at least in the DNA and the fabric of HMSHost, the ACDB program has always been front and center. We have a person who leads that for us in Ron Gomes. Ron is if not the top, one of the top people who speaks about this around the country, and who believes in it, and he brings that belief within our company, and it runs throughout the fabric of the organization. I hope that answers the question, but at least at HMSHost, we're very passionate about it.
Yes, and really thanks to HMSHost, that's how Concessions International, we were a minority partner with you all in LAX. That was our first entry into the airport. So, we appreciate HMS for that.
Well, and you're not alone. I think that it's interesting. When I look across the industry, so many of our partners who become primes, while some people say you're creating competitors, I'm just saying, no, we're just seeing our children grow up.
Yes, yes. And then, so thank you for that. And Shawnta, with you and your experience, you're new in this airport space, right? So tell us a little bit about your experience as an AMAC member and any impact that it's had on you specifically as a young Black woman in this industry.
Oh, absolutely. First, like you said, I'm definitely brand new to aviation. So understanding ACDBE, I didn't understand why I'm like, what do you mean local businesses aren't in the airport? Like, or it's a small percentage, what are you talking about? And I actually come into Midway partnership. It's actually, as a partnership, we're very proud, of our ACDBE participation. We probably have one of the most leading percentages in the country. And I work with them every day. I'm from Chicago. I eat Chicago food. So having a sense of place in Midway Airport is like a dream come true for me. It's like I don't have to go outside to go get my Italian beef or my Vienna hot dog. I can just come right to the airport and just feel at home. I think that growing locally, it's given us basically a lot of opportunity to come into the industry as well. Having partners like them it brings a different perspective to the business. I know Steve alluded to empathy. I definitely have empathy. I used to be operator, right? So the things that they're going through, the things they're seeing, I saw once as an operator, not necessarily for retail, but I mean for a restaurant, but for retail, right? So it's just, I'm very proud. And then when I got to Amac, understanding how, you know, we actually all have something in common. We're all in aviation. We all, you know, any of the things that we have in place, I actually see faces to those things. So it's a great mix for me. It's a great.
So we're talking a lot these days about wealth creation. For years, you know, minority business participation has been primarily a subcontracting or subtenant relationship. The federal programs, the state programs, the local programs are all largely subcontracting or subtenant programs. And I think we're beginning to learn that although there are a lot of women and minorities that have done well through those programs, that perhaps it has not resulted in the level of wealth creation that that a lot of us think we should be aspiring to achieve. And so I'm going to ask both of you to talk about something that you may not be expertly familiar with, but I just want to get you to thinking outside the box a little bit. You know, why should someone who is an employee in a company and doing well, right, very talented and has a promising career, why should that person consider putting that behind and launching into the entrepreneurial world? What we find is some of our best talent are employees in companies, right, who are on the fence about making that kind of decision. I've actually had the benefit of inspiring a few people to make that leap from an employee to an entrepreneur, and they're doing quite well. So from your vantage point, which I don't know if either one of you actually made that leap, what would you say to someone who is on the fence, who is an employee right now and is thinking about, you know, leaping into an entrepreneurial opportunity?
I'll start. Well, one, I don't have any field in that. However, I can talk about my own personal experience in taking that leap, right? Mm-hmm. I've been dedicated to retail majority of my life, and this opportunity, you know, presented itself, and it was scary. I'm not gonna lie, it's a scary experience to jump out of something that you feel so uncomfortable with to something that you have no idea what tomorrow will hold. And I just say, just do it, right? Sky's the limit, tomorrow's never promised. I think that majority of some of these better minds that are coming out there are some ones that think outside of the box. They look at challenges, they look at opportunities, and they go after it, and they try to figure out how they're going to overcome them. That's something that's probably been lost for some time, and now it's kind of making a comeback. So if any of you guys out there want to do, you know, shout to that leap of faith, whether it's to own your own business, whether it's to get out of a different field, coming from somebody who did it, I say do it, go for it.
It's a good question, Ricky. You know, we've had a few of those who come from HMSHost who were ex-employees, right? Clarence Daniels, who ended up building quite an organization that he ended up selling and doing really well with and created wealth. Clark Sharp has been one who's done that. Greg Plummer, who was an offshoot of actually Clarence, who's out in Los Angeles, who was an employee and became an entrepreneur and is now in this business. My answer is probably it depends on the person and their risk tolerance, right? You know, we all have different risk tolerances. We've learned probably the most about risk tolerance through COVID, right? Each of us has a different risk tolerance of how you want to go out into the world. Do you want to wear a mask, not wear a mask? Do you want to eat in a restaurant, not in a restaurant? Do you want to fly, not fly, right? All of those things are, you're constantly doing the mental calculation. And I think entrepreneurship's the same thing. Do you have the ability to go out there and do that and withstand probably the first year, 2 years, 3 years of difficult times? You know, as a person who's always worked in corporations, I've never had the risk tolerance to do it, believe it or not. I've had opportunities, but my risk tolerance has always been coming from a family of very small means. I always wanted the ability to have a paycheck. I worked one time in my life for commission, and I did okay with it, but I didn't like the fact that I didn't know if I was going to get paid the next month. So to me, it's about that. Do I think people should do it? Absolutely, if you have the opportunity and you have the access to capital and you have a sound business plan. I would say jump out there, because that's how the world has changed. World has changed through some corporations, but it's mainly changed through entrepreneurs. They come up with an idea and they decide what we need, or what we want, and they find that solution. Um, and if you think of all the advancements we've made in this world, it's usually through that. So if you've got the passion, you've got the risk tolerance, I'd say jump in and do it. I wish
Yeah.
I would have had that as a young man.
So do I. There was a time when my plan was to buy a nightclub right out of college, and that
Wow.
didn't happen. And I had to get a job, and that's how I ended up working at BWI, at the
Good
time at
idea.
BWI Airport. Yes, that's true. That's a true
Yeah.
story, boy. Yes.
But yeah, and then everybody can't be an I think entrepreneur, like people look at entrepreneurship, especially in my generation, and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. But, as Steve mentioned, it's a lot of risks you're taking. And sometimes I think that it could be smart to keep your day job and maybe start your business on the side. Of course, not with the conflict of work, but don't be so quick to let go of your paycheck, your weekly paycheck, chasing a dream. I think it's more too about chasing that passion, not chasing the paper, but chasing the passion and the purpose. But I want to ask, just, being a leaper really myself, I want to ask you, Steve, I read your bio and I hear about your experience at Westfield, and then you coming over to HMS, being a business development leader. Can you tell us about the breakthrough from there to CEO? Like, I know it's probably a lot of steps, but could you just give us a overview of how you got from BD to CEO?
I think I was just the last one who was still around, and they said maybe it's your maybe it's your maybe it's your turn. Um, no, I think that part of it is, you said the word earlier, passion. I think that when I got into this industry, of course, it's not an industry you wake up in the morning thinking you want to be in airport concessions, right? You don't know anything about it. But when I got into it and I realized how dynamic it is and really how complicated it is, I love complex things. I love to solve problems, and if you think, when I talk to people who, because of I sit on the board of the National Restaurant Association, I get to meet a lot of restaurateurs. And I've always said, man, if I only could just operate one restaurant, that would be so exciting, or one brand, because we could replicate and do the same thing over and over again. But then I look at what we do, and when you throw into um, the mix of how we do this, from um, local government, working with cities, counties, and states, working with ACDBEs, dealing with the traveling public, dealing with TSA, dealing with federal land, state land, grants. It becomes such a difficult process, and people from the outside look at it and say, "Oh my goodness, how do you guys do that?" Well, you have to have a passion for this job. And for me, in business development, it was always fun to try to figure out the puzzle of what is it that the city wanted, and how do we actually provide that for them. And so part of it was I loved what we did, and I think that when I saw our company, I'd been with the company for 15 or so years at that point. Loved what we did, loved the people, and I got to know our leadership in the organization, and they felt I was the right one to take us into the next step. I mean, I've always been I've always been one of the ones that said that the industry should not be stagnant, right? We started bringing in all the local brands, and we started bringing in new technologies, and these things that were changing. Even though we're a big company, we're always trying to find the next cool, right thing. And I think that part of that is why I'm here. I mean, I have a saying: just do the next right thing. no matter what you're doing, and that could be personal or professional. And if you just do the next right thing as it presents itself, you'll find yourself, you look back after a year or two and you realize that, wow, I've come a long way by just doing the next right thing. And it's hard to say when that point came for me, when I jumped from head of business development to CEO. I know when they offered me the job, it was not a job I wanted, believe it or not. I wanted to be head of business development. Daryl Benton has my job. He actually gets the best job. But but I am proud of what we've done in the last 7 years, because I think that, as a company, it started with the people and it ends with the people. And if we keep that as our core focus, then I think that we're always going to be successful. So I know that's not it's a very hard thing to define, because I've spoken to schools and other people, and they say, "How did you do this?" And I said, "It's very unremarkable. I just showed up and really worked hard every day." My dad taught me. He goes, in life, son, there's always going to be someone who's taller, who's smarter, who's faster, who's stronger, who can do things better than you. But the only thing they can't do is outwork you if you try." And that was the core belief. If you just showed up every day and worked, good things happen.
Yeah, I think there's a real jewel in what you're talking about, really from a legend perspective, because it just goes back to it almost when you were saying, like, I look back and I'm like, hey, how did this happen? I just kept showing up. It kind of reminds me of the Martin Luther King's phrase where he says, you don't have to see the whole stairwell, just take that first step. And then that goes back to us being in the moment, right? Because if we're in the moment and we do the work, it happens. You don't have to be worried about how am I going to get there. Just do what needs to be done today.
What do you think about that, Shawnta?
I mean, it's very true. You definitely do have to do what to do today in order to get to where you want to be. You can't just kind of sit on the sideline and just hope that it's just going to happen, or get mad that it doesn't happen because you didn't put the work in. You got to put the work in every day.
Yeah, and then Shawnta, for you on that note, it's funny when I read your bio, because it says that, hey, you thought you were going to be a journalist and that changed for you. So like, what was the realization with that? Like, how did you make this plan that you put in your head and then you're like, hold on, no, this is actually where I'm supposed to be at? How did that come about?
So for journalism, a funny story, I tried to actually get on one of the podcasts for high school. And I was talking maybe like 12,000 miles a minute. Like I was just talking fast like this. And they were like, okay, we'll call you. And I'm just like, I don't know if this is meant for me. And then I ended up getting a job actually at Target. And as I was in Target, I realized, I'm like, wow, at first I was just merchandising. And then they had me go to like the electronic department to help out. And I was helping customers. And I was like, I have a knack for this. Like, I'm enjoying this. And so I started, going to different retail locations, because I'm like, I think this is where I want to be. Journalism, yes, I have no problem talking to anybody, but I just didn't think that it was me being behind a kind of a microphone and hidden was not my talent. So I think being the forefront and being the person that someone walks in and I'm saying welcome, that was my dream, just to be kind of the center.
So, a couple weeks ago, we lost a staunch supporter of Amac, a longtime friend to Amac, a friend to many members of the Amac family, Kevin Warrington. And when you lose somebody that close, someone who's so full of life, it always causes you to kind of reflect on what's important. And so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to shift a little bit. Both of you are very engaged in what you're doing from a professional standpoint. But both of you also have personal lives that involves, family members. How do you, and I often hate asking this question because I'm terrible with it, but how do you achieve, balance, balance between, the demands of your career and the demands of your family or loved ones? How do you accomplish that?
Shawnta, I'll start if you want me to. First, for me anyway, you marry an incredible woman. So she is the one who's carried the burden of our family, I think. As you know, being in business development, you're on the road a lot. So she was there to be a partner. So that was for me a very lucky thing. But it's also what's a priority in your life, right? So I've always been a scheduler. Everything from I schedule my workouts to I schedule when I'm supposed to be home to I schedule when I'm supposed to spend time to I schedule date nights, right? So all of that discipline. I mean, many of you are probably old enough to remember the oh shoot, what was the name of the old um, day planner system?
Oh, you talking about Stephen Covey's, Franklin Covey?
Franklin Covey.
Yeah, there are only
So
two people on this call that could help you with that, Steve.
that's probably me and you, right?
Right.
So the Franklin Covey taught me a long time ago about how prioritization and how you schedule, and I think that for me it was defining that priority, that was a priority, right? So I always managed to be home on weekends, even though I might be gone Monday through Thursday. I always managed to be there for every baseball game, so that priority was key to me. Even probably to the detriment of professional at some points, but the right thing to do for your life, right? Because it is a balance. I mean, we work to live, we don't live to work, right? So I think that making sure that those things are in balance those are the key to the best executives, I believe. They have to have both, you know, because if things aren't going well at home, I don't think they go well at work.
Amac headquarters, can you all make sure y'all send this recording to Mrs. Johnson? Because Steve is going to get husband of the year. Steve, thank you for sharing that, for sure.
That is so true. For me, though, I think I've always had hardworking grandparents, hardworking mother. So work has always been inevitable. So not being at home has kind of been normal. As far as friends, though, yes. Now, my friends are a totally different group, right? I do definitely make plans with them. I ensure that I have something on my calendar to make sure we have our weekly dinners, just so I don't get out of that kind of my blind spot of I'm just working. I don't have any loved ones at home. It's just me and my puppy. My puppy misses me, so I go home to her. That's about it. But outside of that, I definitely look at, and I'm just trying to just balance everything in my normal day, Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday, whatever it is. And then from there, I just kind of just notch out things that are very important to me. I know Steve said that he, takes out date nights and things of that nature. I get it, man. I definitely get it. So having grandparents my grandfather was a bus driver for 50 years. My grandmother, worked in appliances for like 30 years. I understand the whole date night thing and making sure it's on the calendar, because that's a huge, contribution to their success now, even in their marriage.
We need our date nights, period.
Steve, you're making it hard for the rest of us, man.
Hey, that is plan time. Ricky, I know we're coming up kind of to the point where we're going to let the crowd ask questions. Mm-hmm. Is it cool if I ask one more question before?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I just want to know, we're still in January of 2022. Can you all shed a little light on maybe a personal and professional, in a sentence, one word, like 2022 goal, personally and professionally? Take your time.
I think we achieved the looking up in the air moment that we wanted, Mori, for both.
Yeah, and I know, come on, and Steve, if you're a planner, I'm not saying that you plan your goals, because again, we're living in the moment, but I know that you all put a little thought before the year started or even right after, of just something, even if it's to read a book every month or something.
Or to spend more time with your wife, Steve.
Yeah, I think, yes, I do set goals every year, both personally and professionally, and I do that usually right around the end of December, because I try to take a couple days off right at Christmas time, and that's when I do it. Um, Personally, I think that it doesn't seem like a very big goal for me, but I need to get back to the gym all the time. COVID has taken that away from me, so that's a health goal that I have.
Steve, we talked about that 2.5 years ago, right?
I know. True.
Ricky, we talked about that last week.
And I think the other part is actually to spend more time with my brother and sister who live in Texas. I haven't seen them in 2 years for very long, so that was a goal that I wanted to go spend a week with them somewhere. So these are all very personal goals, but they're not going to change the world, but they're things that I put down as things that I wanted to get done. Professionally, it's more of a big thing for us, which is really to see the company back to its prior shape, and that's a longer term goal. The business is still not where it needs to be. I'm sure all the people on this call would nod their heads yes to that if I could see them. We are so much better than we were. We have so much longer to go, and I think that that's the part that for me is the professional side, which is to stay steady through this process as employments go up and down and business goes up and down, and new factors are introduced into our business, to stay steady, to understand that keep your eye on the horizon, because that is really where we're going to go. It's not going to be the choppy waters around us.
So, so thank you for that. So as Anthony begins to come on to share with us the questions from the audience, I'm going to ask both of you to do a quick response to a question. So Steve, I want you haven't known Shawnta very long, but I want you to do two things. One, I want you to use one word to tell Shawnta how you would like her to know you or perceive you. And then I'd like you to use another word to describe your perception of Shawnta. And I'd like Shawnta to do the same thing.
I think the word I'd like for her to know me as is available. That I hand out my business card. It has my cell phone number on it. I would give her my cell phone number. She can text and call and ask any question, or if I'm in Chicago, I'd stop by and say hello. The one word to describe her: effervescent. I think that she's full of life, and I love her smile, and I love her attitude.
All right.
It's a good guy, Steve.
Yes.
And someone in the chat, like right when we got on, was like, "Can I get Steve's cell phone number?"
I know, I saw that.
So he's available.
All right, Shawnta.
One word that, just knowing Steve right here, confident. You're just very relaxed. I mean, like, I know you've been doing this for a while, but definitely confidence just comes off of you, and I'm just like, whew, I'm over here sweating, like, surely, Another one, relatable. Like, I mean, even when we talked briefly, even before Ricky let us know that he wasn't going to tell us the questions, even if we did write them down. You still was like, hey, let's have a great conversation. We can piggyback off of each other, and it just really made me feel more comfortable. So I would say relatable.
So what's the word that you want him to perceive you?
Word, perceive me.
Yes.
Yes. I would say I am a light of joy. Yes. But joyful. I would just say joyful.
Joyful. Okay.
Definitely good to be around.
All right. Thank you. Anthony.
Yes, thank you for leading us through that conversation. We do have a few questions that came in through the chat. So I will start. First question that came in, it says, you talked about the importance of doing the next right thing. what are some habits that each of you have on a daily or weekly basis? And we'll start with Shawnta.
What was some things that I do to create? I'm sorry.
On a daily or weekly basis, some habits.
Some habits. So a random thing that I do personally, I basically scan my hand and put it at in my office in my house, and I give myself a high five even when no one's there, just to kind of get some motivational things going, because I don't want to bring anything to bad to work. And I also every morning, and it doesn't stop, I listen to Whitney Houston on the way in. And I can't sing, I'm gonna tell you that now, but singing really loud with the music turned up on your way into work just brings you a different joy. So I highly suggest that.
Thank you. Steve?
I think I start every day really with a thought to be open, to remember to listen. Right. So I think that when you walk into at least a position that like I have today, I'm surrounded by incredibly smart people. And my job is to not get in their way, but to also to listen and to help create opportunity for them. So, I had a chance to meet Max Dupree back in the 80s. I don't know if anyone knows who that is. He was a business executive, son of the founder of Herman Miller. And the favorite quote that he taught me, and I got to do several sessions with him, but he said the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. The last is to say thank you. And in between, the leader is a servant. And I think that struck me even back when I was a young person, that it isn't always about trying to tell people what to do. It's about trying to listen and understand what they need to do. And being helpful in that process. So at least that's where I try to start. I'm not sure I finish there every time, but that's where I try to start.
Thank you. We have another question that came in, and it reads, as an ACDBE JV partner of HOST, I'm truly thankful for the opportunity, not only to be able to have a chance at doing business at that level, but I truly appreciate the mentorship I have in HOST. My question is, what qualities makes a long-standing partnership relationship with HOST or primes? So what qualities makes a long-standing partnership?
I think common vision, patience, loyalty. I think all those things are important in that partnership. It's an interesting thing when you go into business with people. It's full of risk. Hopefully it has a great outcome in the end. But I also think that people have to understand that there's ups and downs, and it's that patience and it's that openness and that loyalty to see it through. And many of our ACDB partners have been with us for 10, 15, 20, 30 years in some cases. And, our job as the prime is to mentor them, to help them get access to capital, to give them opportunity. If we fulfill that piece and they fulfill their piece, which is to really be there with us, to learn, to teach, then the partnership works. And I think that we're very proud at the company of those partnerships and how long they've lasted.
Thank you. Shawnta, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I came in with already established, ACDBEs. But one thing that I brought to it was humility, because I don't know everything. So they are the experts, and for good reason they are. So it's just, I'm hanging on to their coattail.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Steve, if you could have the perfect dream and dream about the perfect certified business partner, what would that scenario look like for HMSHost? What would be the perfect certified business to bring to the table to help your firm?
Well capitalized in these days. Joke.
No, that's not a joke.
It's not a joke, but it's, but that's in today's world, well capitalized, I think is key, but also someone with a passion. This is not an easy business, like I said before, and someone who comes in with a passion, who really wants to work at it. It can be a wonderful place to create wealth. It can also be a tough ride, and you have to be patient to get through both. So someone well capitalized and passionate, and you know what, come on in.
And Steve, can I add on to that? How important is it? Okay, let's say if they're not capitalized, but they're bringing a dynamic brand, or they have great politics in that city, like how does that play?
Just as important, I think that finding the right partner there's a lot of factors to it. It's the brands that they have, the operational experience that they bring. Certainly, it helps if they have friends in the city that we're working in, only because it means that they're well known. Many times their brand is well known. When you bring that brand in, it ups the program. It makes the airport more important. It helps us clearly. So I think all of that plays into it. There's a lot of factors going into how you choose the right partner. There's only so many opportunities. So each of them probably it's a little like an RFP, 15% here, 20% here, but they all go into making the decision to choose the right one.
I have a question for Shawnta. We often get feedback after these sessions from people who participate in the sessions. We almost always get feedback. You are being exposed to a population of people that you otherwise would not be exposed to. There are people in this business now that know that lady Shawnta, she was pretty impressive, right? So your profile is up because of this program. So my question to you is, what are you going to do with this heightened profile, this raised profile?
Build connections, get some definitely some insights from different places, different people, and bring that to Midway Partnership, obviously.
And just keep being you, girl. Just keep showing up as you.
That's it, every day.
Absolutely.
Shawnta, one more question that came in through the chat. Can you touch on some of the best practices or techniques you use to pivot through the pandemic?
The best practices that I've pivoted through the pandemic?
That you use to pivot through?
Oh man, it's been a lot. One, I think we talked about it earlier, is just consistency, right? That's probably the key factor. Partnership. Sometimes you just don't know the answer. Sometimes you just have to go and get that answer and have I talked about earlier, humility. Have the humility to ask that question that you don't know the answer to. I think those three things is what I've took away through in this, and what I've basically been improving with every day. Every day that I look up is, if I'm inconsistent on something, what's the downfall? Where's the dominoes going to fall into? If I don't show humility, how's that going to affect my partners? And if I don't give that partnership, how are we going to build that bridge, that gap? So it's kind of a couple of things I did.
Thank you. One more question we have that came in. If there are similar companies competing for placement in or near an airport, what do you find, or would you prefer to see a grant opportunity to grant opportunity to the best one? So I'll read that question again. If there are similar companies competing for placement in or near an airport, what do you find, or would you prefer to see to grant opportunity to the best one? And I'll direct that. Steve, you want to take a?
I'm not sure I fully understand where the question is.
So I guess the question is, if there are options for concepts, what is your process for determining which concept is the better option?
For us, it starts with the science of an airport. It starts with kind of the zone itself. Our belief is that when you look at a mix of concepts, it has to take into several factors. Day part is important. You know, is this a heavy morning, afternoon, or evening day part? We like to have all levels of price points covered, meaning that if a family of four is flying through, I want a place that they can eat reasonably cheaply, but I'd also like a place for the business people to go who may be on expense account, right? So all of those go into what we call the bubble machine, right? And then you look at the zone itself and say, okay, we need two breakfast places, we need two bars, we need, you know, three QSRs, and we need the different price points. And then when you look at you know, we start with what are the top brands in these categories, whether it be national, regional, or local, and then we try to choose the top three brands and say, okay, that's how you choose your concepts. And then you work with the airport itself and you say, okay, is there something you need here that has a special connotation to your city? All that to say, it's very complicated. It's not just as simple as saying, you know, they have the best chicken sandwich, or they have the best steak, or they have the best margarita, right? It really, there's so much that goes into choosing the right concept lineup, so that when the consumer walks through, they don't give it any thought, right? If I'm a family of four, I know where to go. If I'm on expense report, I know where to go. If I'm a couple, you know, traveling to your honeymoon, where do I go? We see people in such different need states, that it's up to us to choose the right concepts to fit all those need states.
Thank you,
Business
Steve.
development, Steve coming out, y'all.
That's right.
Watch out, Daryl. Watch out, Daryl. He's coming back.
Well, just want to thank everyone. We're at the top of the hour, and to be respectful of everyone's time, I just want to thank everyone, our panelists, as well as our moderators for this conversation today. Thank you, our audience members, for joining us on this installment of Legends and Leapers. We're actually accepting emerging leaders within our organization and our program. So if you know of an emerging and industry legend or leaper that you would like to hear from, please send information to info@amac-org.com. Again, that email is info@amac-org.com. We invite everyone to save the date for our Economic Opportunity and Policy Forum, where we're coming together live in Washington, D.C. Safely, of course, following all protocols, COVID protocols safely, but we'll be in D.C. for our Economic Opportunity and Policy Forum on March 21st and 22nd. And then also, please save the date for our annual conference being hosted by the Chicago Department of Aviation on June 20th through the 23rd. More information about our upcoming events and the other ways that you can engage with AMAC can be found on our website at www.amac-org.com. Again, thank you for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve and Shawnta.
Steve, I don't know if you saw Daryl's message.
I did see it. Yeah, he's been telling me that for a couple of years. I'm not sure he's serious though.
Yeah. So this was good. So how do you feel, Shawnta?
I was definitely nervous jumping into this, but after we started talking, I kind of like my jitters came down. But it was good.
Yeah, you
Great job, Shawnta.
You didn't seem nervous. You didn't seem nervous at all.
Oh, sweat bullets over here.
Shawnta, you know how your voice will be shaking and you're hoping nobody like hears you?
Yeah. Like I was like, oh my God.
No, a lot
I
of
gotta
times
put it on mute.
we'll be nervous and nobody else can tell. You did an amazing job. We're so honored to have you being such a big part of Emerging Leaders. We need you.
Thank you. No, I'm happy to be a part. Like, you just don't understand. Like I feel connected now. I did not before. I'm telling you. I was just like, what am I doing here? And then AMAC came and I was like, oh, hey guys.
Steve, I want to thank you as well. Sometimes you have younger, perhaps not even emerging leaders who see these bigger than life figures in the industry. I know when I was growing up, Mr. Russell and Johnny Cochran and Clark Sharp, those guys were bigger than life, right? And it's not until you get to hear them talk about themselves and and you begin to realize that these are good people, right? They're not mean leaders who are aloof and don't care about the same kinds of things that I care about. And that came across. So I want to thank you for
Thank you.
doing this.
No, thanks for the opportunity. As you said, I don't do this very often, but
Yeah.
you called, so I said okay.
Oh, I
So thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Because I've never wanted anything to be about me. So
I promised Steve, in all fairness, in the interest of full disclosure, I promised him I wouldn't ask him to proclaim his favorite airport.
you notice I only mentioned one airport though. So
I noticed that.
Well, Steve,
And you showed
we're
up.
glad that you joined us because it's so inspirational hearing your story and
Yes.
your, what you did. So thank you for joining us. Shawnta, quick question though. How did you get connected with Amac? Lauren had that question, and so did I.
Oh, actually, Sherry Medina told me that because of my personality, she wanted me to be with like-minded individuals and suggested that I go to a minority group. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And she was just like, and go. And I was like, okay, I'm out here. What am I doing? And then once I got into different subcommittees, committees, I understood now. Oh, we all actually have the same vision. I did not know that things like this existed.
Well, I remember this this young lady who showed up on the scene, a bubbly, effervescent personality, just like you, very attractive woman who just kind of arrived on the scene, and 5 years later, she's recognized as, I know we call her an emerging leader, but she has emerged as a leader in the industry. Her name is Mori Russell, right? And so stay in touch with Mori, because it wasn't very long ago where she was standing in your shoes, and she is now recognized as a leader in the industry.
Thank you. Yeah, AMAC really provided that opportunity for me, working with my family's business. I kind of didn't know my way. And through AMAC, it was like, okay, no, I am important here. Like, I can make an impact. So AMAC really provided that platform for myself and, just the network. So thank you for recognizing that, Ricky.
You can pay me later. All right. Well, I guess that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you all very much.
thanks
you, guys.
That was great. Had a great time.
Take care.
Had a great time. Thanks.
Bye, you all.
Bye.